Welcome to Light a Fire Studio. On today's episode, we're going to turn this pile of junk into this cool camp stove. So stick around and enjoy the journey. Look, folks, there are lots of YouTube videos telling you how to get these gas cylinders open. And anytime you're working with an old, recycled, or out of commission gas cylinder, take extreme caution. Do this at your own risk, and understand that it is dangerous and that you need to make sure these cylinders are empty and free of all gases before you attempt to open that top. Ours had malfunctioned and had long since been aired out before we attempt to remove it. There's a lot of these DIY propane camp stoves out there, but we wanted to combine the efficiency of the propane tank as our firebox, basically, and combine that with the aesthetics of the cubic mini. So what you want to do is get a sort of a rounded stencil here, use it as a chuck, and just cut it as best you can. This one was giving us a hard time, wasn't it, Freddy? That's one way to do it. Pesky thing. This is a pretty sturdy canister. That's why we chose to use the propane bottle. Alright, we're just getting started for the day, and what you see here is trying to make a few test welds, but couldn't figure out what was going on. Aha! I had the polarity switch, so the ground's supposed to be in the positive if you want a flux core, and this is a nice safety feature, because it means that gun isn't live if you're trying to stick or TIG weld. Some welders don't even have that safety feature, so keep that in mind. Now, we knew we didn't want the bottle to sit directly on the bottom of the stove, so we decided to make a couple feet. Oh, now you see here, that was what I talked about in the review of this welder. It does have a strange burn back issue. I thought it might have been my tension, but what it is that enough burns off that it doesn't make contact with the tip. And it doesn't happen all the time. Here you go. Just a couple of bead shots. But like I said, we wanted to make some feet so that the bottle wasn't sitting directly on the bottom of the stove. Because over time, with too much heat, it could cause both the bottle and the floor of the stove to break down. So these feet will just keep the bottle in place and raise it up. Well, now it's time to attach the bottle to the feet. And you're going to want to pour a lot of metal in there, so get it hot and just make a big nasty tack. You're probably wondering how we got rid of all that nasty paint. Let's just say grinder may never be the same.
The horror! The horror!
Same here. Just go ahead and pour as much metal as you can into one spot. Sure, you could weld the whole thing up, but it's not really necessary as long as you get some really decent tacks. We're just going to go ahead and do this to all four corners. And if it ever does pop off there because of the expansion and cooling, it's not like it's going anywhere, because it sits on there pretty nice. I just wanted to clean this up for you and give you a visual aid of where we were sitting. And that was 85 amps, and that is a pretty good looking tack. Now it's time to open up the hole for the pipe. Once again, using the plasma cutter here, just freehanding it. Yeah, and it's not that clean. But you know what? I can come back in here with the Dremel and make a nice round hole, so it's not a big deal. Just do your best. Really, not too shabby. It ought to fit nice and tight. Alright, so now we're going to start to put together all the four sides that make up the cubic mini part of the stove.
We have made the triangle.
What you want to do is get yourself a piece of channel angle iron. Tuck that under here, like so.
as a heat sink.
The point I'm trying to make is, this is very thin sheet. I think it was probably somewhere between 20 and 22 gauge. So the heatsink will keep you from blasting through. Oh, zap myself. And now we're just gonna add a bunch of tacks. You're gonna wanna move around a lot. You don't wanna do anything pouring too much heat into any one spot. It could cause each panel to warp and bubble and bow. Guess my point is just tack, tack, tickety tack.
Just wanted to show you real quick what I did here. Took me a minute to set it up, so I tried to save you some time. This was our first side. That looks pretty darn good. On our second side, we just used the same magnet to give ourselves that same degree to make our backs. And now we're just going to put a couple of tacks down yonder. And that should do it.
This is just going to require a lot of tacking, a lot of putting stuff together, a lot of repetition, and there will be a lot of that in this video. So if you get bored, feel free to tap, tap, tap on the right and it'll scroll right ahead. Again, we're doing insides, outsides, tacking what we've tacked, tickety-tacked, tack, tick, tack, toe. Just tack it, is my point.
Just tap it in. Just tap it in. Give it a little tappy. Tap, tap, tap.
I wanted to slow this down into real time. Just listen to that sizzle, so you can see how long I held the weld for. We went ahead and added this top bar, because we might want to put things on top of the stove, and it'll hold things in place. But it shows you these nice little beads too.
Alright folks, we are getting very, very close. There's still a lot to do. You see our little magma chamber here. It's gonna look nice. Alright, finishing up the box. Here we go. Good morning. Beautiful day in the Colorado Rockies. 140 amps. We're just going to tack all this up.
We went ahead and attached the bottom off screen just to save time, and there's just so many tacks that we had to make. So hey, why not some more tacks? Alright, more plasma cutting. So let's just make a hole, cut it out. We freehanded this one again. Clean it up, or go grab a tool, Dremel, air tool, whatever, and set it to fit the pipe. Yeah, we're a little shy there, but, you know, like I said, we'll round it out.
Alright folks, so what we did here is I pre-cut some of these guys to make the whole frame. Now that the box is finished, except for the top of course, we're just going to come in here, frame this whole thing in, tack all these corners together, put our other piece here. And yeah, I cut these earlier just to kind of speed things up a bit for you because I don't want to waste your time. However you can do this. Obviously I'm using a plasma cutter, which gives me really pretty clean lines. But you know, if you've got a chop saw or a jigsaw or whatever it is, just try and get it as clean as you can, get your corners as tight as you can, and then we're just going to come along here and tack all this up. We're getting real close. I think it's going to look nice. All right, let's do what we say.
Once again, just some more repetitious welding and tacking and putting things together, so feel free to scroll ahead, or if you just want to see how this is done, stick around. You don't want to like pour too much heat into any one area. There's no real wrong or right way to do it, but just don't get it too hot, or you'll warp all these panels and you're going to have a bow, or the whole thing's going to wobble. Jump around from corner to corner. Do opposites. Change it up. See? Just don't get it too hot. Make sure you're comfortable too. There are more conventional ways to hold all this together while you're doing it, but this isn't a science. This is just fun. Okay, time to put on the first leg. We had these left over from a project. I think it was a coffee table or some kind of end table or something. The client ended up going with a more modern straight leg thing, and we had these nice forge ones that we'd already made, so it was nice to have the chance to use them. So I was tacking along, and then, of course, burn back. Again, I still hadn't quite figured out what was going on at that point, but cut to some grinding and some welding, and minutes later, and it started to dawn on me that this was a burn back issue, and I think after that one, I had to actually take off the contact tip and pull the wire out, so it happens, but like I said, not that often. So now we're doing leg 2. You're just getting enough metal on here and enough heat to make sure that these are stable until you can go and just weld each one in all positions. I think I was welding pretty aggressively at this point, trying to make up time. Yeah, you see me checking the weather there. Leg number 3, same thing. Just get it on there. Try not to warp anything. Try to just make everything stable enough until you can let it cool a bit and come back and just run long beads all the way along there. These got to be pretty stable. It'd be a real shame if you had this thing running hot and the legs fell off, so.
All right, I'm going to finish up this 4th leg, and then we're going to finish this thing. Okay, welcome back. So here's what we're going to do. I've already leveled it and put everything in place, and then I've added a couple little tacks just to make sure that it doesn't move. Now that's just something you got to figure out on your own, because it's difficult, but I like the way it looks. I'm happy with it, and you can see. So now we're just going to run along here and go tack, 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 tack until we fill all the gaps where smoke might come out or air might leak. There's still more to go, but we're getting really close. Let's do it.
Don't be too aggressive here. Don't try to do too much at one time, and be sure to move around a lot. That pipe's going to heat up. Speaking of the pipe, this was, yes, a galvanized pipe, about a 3-inch. And this is how we got rid of that galvanized coating. You got to get it up to at least 800 degrees. Burn all that off, because that's going to release a lot of toxic fumes. So we just used our blowtorch there, courtesy of Harbor Freight. And we got that pipe up to about 1,000 degrees to get all that galvanized coating off. Then we ground down the bottom where we were going to weld, just to be extra safe. And we sanded the pipe with a good respirator on, of course. See again, look at these pulses. I'm basically trying to use this welder like a pulse.
Need a heat sink. It's just blowing through in spots. We got some big gaps. Let me set that up and I'll come back.
Yeah, we did need a heatsink, but couldn't make it work.
Well, I'm not having much luck getting a heat sink in there. So, I'll try something a little unconventional. See if we can do a little MIG TIG. A little flux core TIG joint. Let's see if it'll work. Working.
And it does work. And you could probably honestly use any piece of metal. Anything that'd fit in the gap and just weld right over it. After we filled those big holes, we came back in and just poured some metal in there. We did do a little grinding to clean it up. There were some nurdles and things, but it looked pretty decent. I wanted you to see this in real time, so you can see how long I'm holding the welds, and seeing how long the pulse is in between pulses. You can see it's still glowing red hot before I make my next pulse. That way, the slag covering it doesn't have time to cure, and you can still get a tack without the wire being too cold, or not having enough exposed metal, rather. Pulse, pulse, pulse.
Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to be pipe welders. I gotta say, folks, that is very not bad right there. Look at that. The old MIG 130. I think she thinks she's a TIG welder. I think she does. I think she does. All right. We're just going to continue to do that all the way around, hopefully. And we'll see you in a minute. Here we go. We're doing the same exact thing we did at the bottom. We're just going to frame this whole thing in. So I'm going to come in real quick, tack all this together. We're going to frame in the sides, and then hopefully we can start working on the door. Be nice to really try it out today. We got a big snowstorm coming, so
Oh, what's that? Oh, yeah. You guessed it. More tacks. And I wanted to clarify, when I say tack, I actually mean we're going to run beads down all these. I just say tack because that's how I talk. But yeah. Go from side to side, back and forth, hit the back, hit the front, hit the front, hit the back, do the sides, up, down, all around. But don't do any one side too much, or you're going to warp it.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm sorry to report, but we did not beat the storm. So, we had to bring everything indoors. But you know what? We finished almost everything with just the flux core side of the MIG 130. And for a less than $200 flux core, stick, and lift TIG welder, we're very impressed. There's really not much more to do. We got to finish up the door and maybe do a few structural tacks with the TIG weld, but unfortunately we did order a WP-17 lift TIG torch, but it hasn't arrived. You know, the way of things these days. We use mostly high frequency in the shop, but it'll be cool to actually try the MIG 130 on its lift TIG setting. So we're excited about that, but we really want to get this finished so we can try it out. We went ahead and let the intern have a crack at the door, and let's just say it didn't go so well. That's all right. Everybody's still learning, you know? Every day you learn something new and you get a little bit better. Weld every day if you can. So we're going to try and fix that up a little bit, and then we're going to come in here and finish this thing.
In case you were curious, these are the hinges we settled on, because we had them left over from another job and we had half a bucket full. Ours have a nice brass coating on them, but... So here's the first TIG welds. We had to put a shim in first in order for the door to sit flat, so that's what you see here. And then we went ahead and tacked the hinge on, and this was our first time opening the door. Kind of a nice feeling, really. Just fill it up. Fill it in there, make sure that door's going to stay on. It's about that door handle. We have these copper-coated brass bolts we salvaged from an electrical plant. And they're pretty cool, and they're easy to bend. Et voila! That's a finished stove, folks. However you choose to finish the door is really up to you. I've seen people do a little pig nose. That might have been better as far as controlling the draft. But this is what we did. Just wanted to point out real quick, we did use this 1000-degree rated heat foil tape around all the seams, just for good measure. And here's some nice still shots of the finished piece. We're quite pleased. Also, we did make these louvers to control the draft, but we didn't have time to put them on before editing the video.
Well, folks, that about wraps it up for the Arccaptain MIG 130. It helped us make this cool little camp stove here. We're very impressed. We'd still like to try the lift TIG function on it, but we'll save that for another video. So go grab yourself some snow melt, put on your best hoodie, and go make something. You know, it's starting to feel a lot like summer out here with this little stove.